It's spooky time. We are talking about the nostalgia of October, guys. Get ready to blast off into the world of entertainment with Pop Culture Planet. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Pop Culture Planet. I'm your host, Kristen Maldonado, and each week we are joined by incredible experts for analytical pop culture discussions. Before we get started, I just wanted to call out that this past month we've been celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, Latinx Heritage Month, however you'd like to call it, and I've gotten a chance to have some really eye-opening conversations with rising Latinx talent about their cultures and experiences, like Yvette Monreal, Madison Reyes, Janine Mason, and Noemi Gonzalez, as well as invite Latinx and Hispanic experts onto my platform to talk about everything from uplifting the Latinx experience to female filmmakers to women and people of color in horror and so much more. And now, on the last day of Hispanic Heritage Month, over 270 Latinx writers from Lin-Manuel Miranda to Gloria Calderon-Kellett put out an open letter calling for systemic change in the entertainment industry when it comes to Latinx creatives. This is just a reminder that while Latinx Heritage Month, Hispanic Heritage Month is from September 15th to October 15th, we should be supporting our Latinx community every day. All right, now, in this episode, I am thrilled to be joined by some returning guests. We have Yael Tygiel and the movie oracle herself, Ashleigh Burnell. How are you guys doing? Welcome back.
Thanks for having us back.
Hi.
Yay. I'm so glad
It's
you guys
the place
could
to
come
be
back
on
and join me.
Thursdays.
That's what I like to think.
Or Fridays if you're in my part of the world.
Exactly. So as you guys are both returning guests, we've heard a little bit about your entertainment origins already, but for anyone who missed it, do you guys want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're currently working on? Yael, do you want to start?
Sure. Hello, I'm Yael. I am a big nerd covering TV and movies, mostly digital interviews, pop culture-y things. I used to go to Comic-Cons when they existed, but now I'm just from this room doing stuff. So you can find me on Saturdays. I do a show called Streaming Wars over on that hashtag show. We just did a really great Halloween episode where we highlighted the best Halloween content from each of the different streaming platforms. So like if you don't have Disney Plus, we'll tell you what's on Netflix. If you don't have that, we'll tell you what's on Hulu. I also do Super Lady Hero Hour with my amazing co-host KB, and we talk about everything superhero related because that's my jam. And I'm streaming on Twitch because I'm terrible at video games and it's funny to watch me fail.
So what video game are you playing now?
So I'm currently playing Saturday Night Slam Masters on Super Nintendo. And I thought that I used to love this game and was good at it. And when I plugged it in, I found out that I may have loved it, but I'm terrible at it. So I've gotten better over the 3 streams we've done, but not good, just better.
That's awesome. We definitely got to check that out. What about you, Ashleigh?
Oh gosh, right now I'm focusing on all my Spooktober content over on my YouTube and my 31 Days of Halloween Marathon Challenge. I believe, officially watched 96 films in 16 days.
Wow.
All right, so you got to tell us, what's the best one and the worst one you've seen so far?
Oh God. The worst one might be a film called either The Haunting of Molly Bannister or The Jonestown Haunting. Probably The Jonestown Haunting. That was atrocious. Best? I don't know. There have been some really nuts in Halloween 2018, and that was actually really good. But I think my favorites are just the ones that I'm so happy to go back to every year, like Addams Family and Halloween Town and
all the ones we'll talk about today.
Exactly. It all works out.
Too funny. Well, now I really want to check out the ones that you said were really atrocious because sometimes there's something really fun about that.
Yeah, I usually like really bad films, like so bad they're hilarious, but no, one was just poorly written. The other one was just offensive.
Oh gosh.
because it was basically based on the centered around the Jonestown massacre, but it decided to take a supernatural twist. Well, the synopsis said it did, but then it doesn't do it in the actual film. And then the film basically implies that the entire massacre was a CIA conspiracy. So
now I really want to see that.
Oh, gosh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, today we're going to be talking about some of the films that I think you enjoy a bit more, the ones that you said you like to go back to. Today's topic is the spooky nostalgia of October, diving into our favorite childhood movies and TV shows centered around Halloween or October. I feel like this is always my favorite time. You know, I'm just like constantly going back to things that I used to watch when I was young, or, you know, whenever they come out with like the new stuff, like you mentioned, Yael, on like the streaming platforms, I'm like, yes, what are we gonna get this time, you know? So just to kick things off, I'd love to hear from you guys, you know, why do you think that, you know, fall and October and like Halloween season is so beloved? Like, what do you think it is that like attracts us and makes us so nostalgic for it?
I'll wait.
Yeah, you wanna
right. Yeah, I think it's just such a fun season in general, right? It's between summer and the holidays and all of that, which is its own nightmare. And so it's between that, and it's a time of change. The weather's changing. Kids are back to school. I mean, I'm talking about normal years, not this year.
Not this year.
Kids are back to school. You know, the weather's changing. There's all this like autumnal activities like pumpkin patches and hay rides. And, you know, I know there's also like all the horror aspects. I think there's something warm and exciting about this transition from summer to winter. And I think that's what it is. And so these movies give us that nostalgia and coziness. Yep. Pulled that out of my butt and I think it works.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm like addicted to fall. I've like been trying to have all these fall days where I like go pick apples and grapes and get like pecan and pumpkin pies. And we've created this concoction called the pump pecan, which is when you eat half of a pumpkin pie and then half of a pecan pie, and then what you have left is half, and you put them together and you continue to just eat each, you know, one together. It's great. I want to like actually create a real version of that, like bake it. I feel like it's possible. I don't know how to do it yet. But yeah, that coziness of like fall and like, you know, that kind of like magic of like Halloween and anything can happen, and it like makes you want to just like watch these movies and wish that like you could be, you know, Marnie from Halloween Town and like, you know, go on these adventures and stuff. Like it's just so nostalgic. Like I feel like the minute September 1st hit, I was like, I am ready for fall. Is it time to watch Halloween movies yet? You know, in my becoming a October robot voice.
It's funny hearing all that because that is so not the experience here. I mean, for starters, we're in spring.
Right.
So we don't so you know, autumn already happened. We've been there, we've done that. So yeah, there's spring for starters, and also Halloween is actually not an official holiday here in Australia. It's not recognized. I don't know whoever controls the calendar, but it's not recognized really by the government. But it's kind of been that thing where we've all grown up watching films or TV shows, even if you like watching something like CSI and they do a Halloween episode and it's like, oh, look, they're murdered. Oh, wait, no, they're dressed as a zombie. Damn it. So everything always does that theme. And when you're in a country that hasn't ever really had this holiday, you're kind of like, oh, this looks like fun. We want to do it too. And it's kind of slowly started to become adopted here. You'd still go into any neighborhood and you'd probably be lucky if you found one or two houses that are decorated. And you're like, those people know how to have a good time. We like those people. But it's just like, I remember the first time I went trick-or-treating was when I was like 10 years old and knocking on people's doors and we're like, trick or treat. And they're like, what does that mean? what is this? And then we're like, okay, now we have to explain what trick or treat is. So it's funny when I still see little kids actually going trick or treating, but it's always such a small group. It's always in the daylight hours because we have daylight savings. Yay. So it's not really dark when people are trick or treating, and you have to actually put something outside to state it's okay to trick or treat at this house. Otherwise you can't really do it because it's just not really accepted by that many people. But boy, do the stores and the grocery stores really get into it because they're like, money. So you go into any store around October and it's like, Halloween decorations everywhere. I'm like, yay, I'm happy.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting. I don't know. I never would have even thought of that. But also, yeah, that makes sense that, like, so you're in, like, spring when, like, we're in our fall. So it's probably, like, I mean, even if you guys did celebrate, it's just different in general.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
it's I mean, aside from the fact you're going to find a lot more days where it's still raining. So it's probably going to be raining on Halloween. But yeah, it's just, it's weird that it's still, it's a slow progression thing because so many people enjoy it. And being that we grow up watching TV and films, and Halloween is just so prominent in so many films and TV shows, when you're living in a country where that's not a holiday, you really like want to celebrate it even more because you're like, we want to get in on the fun.
Yeah.
So the fact that every year, like, more and more people get into it, I think that's really great. But it's still like a something, at least when it comes to like trick-or-treating, it has to be entered with caution because of how many people don't want to participate, and some people can get very angry if they don't care about it. They don't want to participate, and they're just like, leave me alone, which, fair enough. You don't want people knocking on your door all night long. I get that. But because it's something that so many people are just not accustomed to. But I still love going into the grocery store and just seeing the candy aisles just full of Halloween themed candy. I'm like, and one of you, and one of you, and one of you.
So for you then, do you still feel like October becomes like this kind of time where you get into more Halloween movies, or is it more like you just are like, no, this is year round, like I'll just enjoy it whenever I want?
I believe Halloween is a lifestyle choice. It is not a seasonal holiday. But yeah, it's just that even though you guys have that experience of, you get that feeling of like the leaves changing and that just whole change in the air and going pumpkin picking and all that stuff that sounds really, really cool, and I hate you guys. But it still has that feeling of you're just in a different, for us, the days are getting a bit warmer, so that's lovely. Thank you, God. Piss off winter. But you do just kind of feel like you start seeing, all the stores, and it's kind of the same at Christmas time, suddenly all the stores and things start decorating for Christmas. So when you start seeing like Halloween stuff everywhere, you're like, I know this time of year. But I mean, I would happily watch any of the films that I love for Halloween any day of the year. There's just something that feels more special and almost like traditional when you're watching it at the same time every year, that just makes it that, little bit more, oh.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that you say that because I don't celebrate Christmas. And so seeing the way the whole world turns into Christmas season and all the Christmas movies, I have the opposite feeling of like, I hate it. I get so angry. And so to hear you talk about like, we don't celebrate it, and then we see all the movies and we're like, we do want to celebrate it. And I think that Halloween has that because it's like a playful, magical energy that's different than like a Christmas energy, which to me feels very forceful and in your face. But like Halloween feels like everybody can participate type of thing. And I think it's so interesting to hear how you see it and are like, we want to be in it. And I'm like, Christmas sucks.
You're such a Scrooge.
Yes. I am the Grinch.
That is too funny. Now, going off of that, do you guys have like a favorite project, whether it's a TV show or movie from your childhood, and what is it and why? Ashleigh, you want to start?
Oh God, there are so many. There are so many. Like I last year I did my top 10 Halloween movies. So mine were things like The Crow, obviously the Halloween franchise, Double Double Toil and Trouble,
Oh,
Trick or Treat. There's still so many people who haven't seen that. They should really watch it. All Hallows Eve, not to be confused with a indie family film that came out in 2016, but the 2013 horror anthology film, The Nightmare Before Christmas. I know there's always that debate: is it a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie? It's both. It is both. That is plain and simple. Obviously the Halloween Town films, Hocus Pocus, and Twitches. I don't know why this never pops up on people's lists. Twitches is definitely a Halloween movie because their birthdays are on Halloween. And Once Bitten is also one of my favorite
Once Bitten.
go-tos. Oh, that's probably also one of my favorite movie soundtracks. That movie is great. If you haven't seen it, everybody watch it. So good. Jim Carrey.
Yeah, that was a young Jim Carrey, like the 80s. Wow. Throwback. What about you, Yael? Do you have a favorite spooky project from your childhood?
So I am not a scary movie person. So have not seen any of the Halloweens. They all look terrifying. So all of mine are spoopy movies. So
Yeah.
Hocus Pocus, The Addams Family Values,
Yes.
Casper, all Halloween towns, but must be watched in order. Twitches 2, of course. And then I used to really look forward to the Sabrina the Teenage Witch Halloween specials.
Ooh.
Because they took Halloween very seriously. It was very important. And now I feel like with Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, we have that whole like evolution of it. So I really like not scary Halloween stuff.
Yeah. I mean, Halloween Town, that's definitely up there for me. I was rewatching the first two recently, and I think those two are my favorite ones. I'm going to be controversial and say I like the second one a little bit more, just because I think that they really like add more to the story, you know, whereas like the first one's a little bit more like, just like family fun. And I also recently watched Double Double Toil and Trouble because I was like, wow, that movie, I haven't seen it so long, and it was so cute. It like I remembered so much of it, and I was like, childhood. But I feel like I gravitate more towards TV shows also. So like around this time, I'm always like, oh, I want to rewatch like Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark, or they have this newer show called Creeped Out, where the first season was really good, and it's like, you know, I love those like little like family-friendly anthologies where it's like, you know, little spooky things happen, but like, you know, it's more of like for everyone, you know. They also had R.L. Stein's The Haunting Hour. That was a fun one. So like whenever we get to these seasons, I'm just like, I want to rewatch like all these little anthologies from my youth, and also not my youth, just me as an adult watching them, but still.
I always loved that those anthologies, for whatever reason, would reuse a lot of the same cast. I assume because it was all produced in the same place. But
I think a lot of these are Canadian for some reason, which also makes sense why I like it. But yeah, I think a lot of Canadian actors.
I recall like when I was younger watching an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, and then I know it was an R.L. Stein show, and I can't remember if it was Goosebumps or Haunting Hour or another one that he did, that had the same like scary wizard dude. And I was like, are they in the same universe? Like I need someone to explain this connection. But yes, production in Canada does make sense.
Yeah. I don't know why. I just love spooky Canadian things or spoopy Canadian things.
Yeah.
I used to love I feel like it doesn't happen as much these days, oddly enough, but I used to, one of my favorite things was during watching any TV series at all, and almost all of them would have a Halloween episode. I'm like, yes, because it feels like it was like for most TV shows, it was like their chance to kind of have some fun, break away from the norm, try something a little different. And you could just kind of see like everybody was kind of letting their hair down, and it's just like this is not your typical episode. This is just, we're all here to have a good time. Like, even if it doesn't matter what the show was, it was kind of always that. And it just, even if you're watching like a crime show or a drama, suddenly it just has that completely different vibe to it, where it's just like, oh yeah, we're serious, but there's a tone of fun to it. So like, it's kind of easier to get on board with. And I love that so many shows embrace that. I don't feel like as many shows do anymore. I don't feel like many shows have Halloween special episodes anymore. And that kind of bums me out, because every time I get to one, I'm like, oh, you did one. Yay, 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 yay. And then they don't. And I'm like, oh, wow, I had a whole season. There wasn't no Halloween? Really?
Yeah.
Not even any Christmas? I know, no Christmas, but still.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really like when a show does. I think a lot of shows have their like tentpole holidays that they would hit. You know, Modern Family always did a special Halloween every year. It was very important to them. And I like when a show cares about Halloween. But, you know, I like the CSIs. I used to watch the NCISs, and there was always a Halloween episode. And of course, there'd be a Christmas episode. And so I agree. I think it's really fun when a show does acknowledge the time of year. It also helps you know where we are in the season.
Yeah.
Bob's Burgers does Halloween episodes as well.
The Simpsons,
of course,
like they're like so known for it.
Yes.
And you know, becomes like a fun tradition thing where it's like, oh, what are they going to do this time? You know, because it's so traditional and iconic for them to do that. You know, it's like,
I think it was a year or two ago where I just before Disney Plus became a thing, and before I had the chance to binge watch every episode of The Simpsons on Disney Plus, I just was like, I feel like watching The Simpsons, but I don't feel like watching The Simpsons. Like, I'm gonna watch every single Halloween episode. I'm like, Treehouse of Horror, here I come. And somebody had all the episodes on YouTube. I'm like, cool, I know what I'm doing tonight, and play all. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, oh, and I remember this one, and I remember this one. And I love that there would be like, they'd sometimes either spoof something real. I know in most recent years when they did their opening, they kind of spoofed Pan's Labyrinth, and I'm just like, wow, of all things to pick, you pick Pan's Labyrinth. That was pretty awesome. And then, you know, back in the early days when they were like doing, you know, Quote the Raven, so they're doing, you know, they'll either do something that's really modern or they'll do something that's really classic, and they're not afraid to even go international. So
yeah,
good on Simpsons for doing that.
Totally, yeah. I think it's so fun when they do that. Yeah, you know, the fact that like Treehouse of Horrors is a thing that like, you know, outside of just like their regular episodes. That's so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get into some more of our favorites. I think we kind of talked a little bit about like some of like the Disney Plus and what they have because of, you know, all their DComs, and, you know, they always did like fun Halloween episodes. And I feel like one that people always go back to is The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. They had like this crazy Halloween episode with like a seance and everything. And but they also had a lot of really fun Disney Channel original movies. I mean, we got to see the Halloween Town franchise go through 4 films. That was epic.
Two Marnies. 4 films, 2 Marnies. It's got to be noted.
I feel like the reason I love the first 2 films so much is because they do feel so connected. Like they've introduced this person, Calabar, then they've introduced a family member of his. And then when it goes to the next movies, it feels like they introduce these random villains that like have nothing to do with anything. And while the third one is still a fun movie, I just feel like because those stories don't connect back to like the original thing that we were introduced to, I'm kind of like, you missed an opportunity to really like dive even deeper into like this mythology and like really, I don't know, make it bigger.
I feel like they went more with, I feel like they dove more into like the mythology and history of Halloween Town with each movie. Like bringing in the Knights into Halloween Town High was a nice touch because it touches on why Halloween Town had to create their own world separate from the human world. And I like that. They also all have really good messages. But I think the one thing that I love the most minus the fourth one, is that at least with the first three, there's like we really see Marnie growing with each installment, and she's really coming more into her magic, and she still has a lot to learn. Where I feel with the fourth one, she somehow seems less intelligent, she seems less sure of herself, and somehow her magic is nowhere near at the level it was in the previous film. I'm like, why did we go backwards? Why? Oh, yeah.
She also wasn't as like, I feel like the original Marnie was very like, you know, would stand up for herself and stand up for things, and like this other Marnie seemed like very like reserved and like a little bit goody two shoes. Like she wouldn't like go up against you know, authority, whereas like the original Marnie would have been like, what?
I entirely agree with that.
It almost felt like, and I say this as someone with no knowledge of whether this is the case or not, but it felt like somebody made a trilogy and was like, here is a trilogy. And Disney Channel went, let's make more. And everyone was like, but it's a trilogy. And they were like, no, we can make more money. We'll make a fourth one.
Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Halloween Town High was intended to be the last installment, so I don't know why they then did. I mean, it's all fine and well if you're like, cool, let's do another one, but then it's like, yeah, but let's like get rid of the main actress and replace her for absolutely no reason, because this is such a great idea, guys.
Yeah, I've seen she said like they just didn't even ask me to come back. You know, it's like she would have done it. They just didn't invite her back. Like maybe they thought they needed a younger, fresher actress, but I feel like if anything, that movie just is like unanimously hated. And it like when I rewatched it relatively recently, I was like, it's actually not the worst story. It's just bad because it's not the Marnie that we would want. Like there was potential. It was just like you recast the lead and it just didn't work because of that. And you like changed the lead, like how her character behaved. Mm-hmm. But like the story itself was kind of interesting.
I feel like the more I watch it, the less I like it, and I feel I notice more issues with it. I like this is such a weird thing to dislike about it, but I dislike how all the students at the university dress human. It's Halloween Town. They don't do human. That's not in their ensemble there. Witches have their outfits, and for them dressing human doesn't really make sense that I'm watching all these witches and wizards walking around in jeans and plaid shirts and, you know, designer skirts and stuff. I'm like, what? No, that's not Halloween Town. Where are the cloaks? Where are the spider jewelry?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, I just feel like once you, I don't know, they started adding all of these like recognizable High School Musical people, and then I was kind of like, I don't know, it's just feeling further and further away from what I originally enjoyed.
I haven't seen the fourth one in so long. I just remember seeing the first three and being like, this is a trilogy. And then they went, all right, why don't we try to continue making money? Let's just put this together. We'll just put something out. And that's what they did.
Well, imagine if what they had originally intended had happened. There was a scheduling conflict, and originally they weren't going to get Debbie Reynolds to come back to play Aggie, and it was going to be Professor Whittlesey, whatever her name was. She was going to actually be playing Aggie, and so imagine if they'd replaced two actresses for that thing. I think everybody would have lost their minds. But fortunately, Debbie Reynolds' schedule did open up a bit, so they could include her. So instead, for the actress, they created the professor character just so that they could still use her. And I mean, it's nice that they did that. At least her character worked. I would have been pretty devastated if they'd recast Debbie Reynolds. No. Nope,
yeah.
Sorry.
Oh man. And the other thing was they just like Sophie, they just like ditched her. She was kind of the one that had like the most skill at the very beginning of the series, and then they were just like, as it went along, like, what happened to her? She just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I at least understand that with the fourth film, because she had retired from acting and her family moved to Arizona, and so she's like, nah, we're not doing that. So they're just like, yeah, she's traveling through the universe, you know, studying magic. I'm like, well, at least it's logical.
Yeah. I mean, now though, I feel like we need a new movie with Marnie and Calabar's son, since they're dating in real life now, I think that would be a pretty fun
Oh, I did not know that.
sequel. Oh yeah, they've been dating for maybe a year or more. But imagine like the two of them uniting for a fifth Halloween Town movie. I would watch it, 100%.
Halloween Town, the next generation.
I like if they explained why all of a sudden Marnie changed. Like,
it was a glamour.
It was my glamour went wrong, and I was stuck like that for a year. Did I forget to mention?
Yeah, like in Halloween Town, when she's talking about reconstruction spells, and she's like, "Yeah, but walls I struggle with," and it's like, "Yeah, glamour spells not my thing, apparently."
Too funny. Let's get into another fun throwback, Hocus Pocus. Have you guys rewatched this one recently?
Yep, already passed all the H's.
Oh no. Her alphabetical order. Yes.
We're on to the K's now.
I rewatched it last year quite a few times because I wrote and hosted Hocus Pocus trivia at a bar here. And so this year I decided I could take a break because I saw it like 15 times last year. So I've not watched it again this year, but it is the movie that I think makes me feel the most Halloween-y because, it has everything I love about how it has witches, it has magic, it has inappropriate jokes in a kid's movie. It has a little girl who wants to dress up and her brother thinks he's too cool. It has everything you want in a Halloween movie.
Totally. I know that there are some people who it's a minority, but I've heard a lot of people lately who are just like, I don't understand why people love this movie. It's probably one of the worst films I've ever seen. I'm just like, you are not welcome in my house. We will not be socializing, at least during October. It is such a fun film. Bette Midler really steals the show in that film. She just knows, with all her training and everything, and being that she has done so much on the stage, she knows how to give that over-the-top performance. And it works so well for this movie. Your eyes off her and you're just like, oh god, I want to be you. And then of course I can't say how many times I must have seen this film like a million times, and it wasn't until a few years ago when I was rewatching it like I do every year, and I finally got the reference when she was singing I Put a Spell on You, and she goes saying, my name's Winifred, what's yours? And I'm like, I can't believe I never picked up on the gypsy reference. Shame on me.
Yeah, I saw that recently too.
I mean, I grew up watching her in Gypsy and it never clicked. And then it took all these years and I'm like, I get that. Oh, wow, that was really slow. Yikes. And then I like called my brother. I'm like, guess what I just realized? And he's like, really? Took you that long? I'm like, sorry. But it's so great, and you can't go without a talking cat. Talking cats are great. It's one of the things I love the most about Sabrina is Salem. So the fact that we have this one, and it's still a film that makes me laugh my head off, and that I can quote till the end of time, and then I still cry at the end. Like it's like a bittersweet ending, and I'm just like, I mean, yay, they won, but it's also kind of sad. But
yeah. It's such a classic. I think it's so interesting to see that like Kenny Ortega directed it, and then like to see his projects now. I'm just like, this is so crazy that this guy's career has had such incredible longevity. And I mean, like I just think the casting in Hocus Pocus is like so spot on. Like you're saying, Bette Midler, and then just the three witches together, like, are such an iconic trio. Like, I don't think that they could have gotten anybody else to play those roles. They just like feed off each other so well. Like, you feel transported when you're watching their performances. It's like they are these characters.
And I definitely feel like, despite not looking anything alike, they feel like sisters with the way that they're always like picking on each other. And Winifred definitely comes off as the older sister, and like, why am I stuck with you two? I absolutely love it. It's great that they each have very distinct personalities, but together, like as much of a badass as Winifred is, and she can hold her own and do her own thing. You just kind of, at least for me, watching that film, you never want to see them individually. You just really get a kick out of seeing the three of them together and interacting, and how each line is like a topper of a topper of a topper. Like one starts it, the next one adds to it, and the next one completely sells it. And it's just like that throughout the entire film. And I can't get enough.
Yeah.
How can anybody hate this film?
You know, and it made me think, you know, when you were on last, we were talking about like that 3 that's very popular, and like witches and like you know, the 3 phases of the moon and all that stuff. But also just like thinking about these 3 witches, it makes me think of the 3 Stooges, you know, like there's just, you know, there's just something about like the number 3, even outside of witches, you know, the 3 Musketeers, you know, where like 3 feels like a magic number of just like comedy as well as like
right. There's the rule of 3s in comedy.
Yeah, exactly. So 3, wow, is a very interesting number and dynamic for these kinds of projects.
Yeah, I mean, we have 3 bad guys, and then we have 3 people who are in turn trying to fight them. So we go 3 for 3. I think what I love is the fact that it's not just really about a film that's like, cool, today is Halloween, so we're all going into Halloween, but it's more about this town that really embraces Halloween, and because it's so ingrained in its history and so much has happened on that day, that they're very historical about it, and they have a lot of pride, and it's not really just an occasion to party and all that. And then here's this guy from LA who is just like, no, Halloween was invented by the candy company. And they're like, well, no, you're uneducated. And like, he thinks he's so cool and smart because he comes from a big city. And then the little city folk are just like, you're an idiot. Do you know that? Like, I like that there's kind of that small town pride. That's kind of, I feel like all that. And a lot of the sets and the housing just like feels very much like stepping into another world. And so I really get a kick out of all that. It just, everything about that film just makes you feel festive.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, you know, based off of what we were just saying, it made me think kind of like my checklist of like, not even something that I think consciously I think about, but just like, what are the things that I think make a really great family-friendly Halloween movie? And I feel like you already named a couple of those things, which is like the town, you know, like when you look at the movies that we've talked about already, like Hocus Pocus, you know, that town feels like, you know, I mean, it's Salem, Massachusetts. Like they even have things set up now that if you were to go there, it's like, oh, this is the Hocus Pocus house. This is, you know, and it feels like an event, you know, that this small town celebrates, and you really feel drawn into that. Or like Halloween Town. I mean, like who didn't want to go to Halloween Town and like take a picture in front of that huge pumpkin, you know, like, right? Like I feel like, oh, go ahead.
No, did you know that there is a town, I think it's in Portland, that is where they shot it, and then you can go and get a picture with the giant pumpkin?
Yes, I wanted to do that,
Tell me that.
but you know, I don't think that's gonna be possible. But
I was gonna say, I love that Hocus Pocus and Halloween Town 2 are connected, because when they're reversing the gray spell, there's a witch who's actually wearing the same costume that was held like in storage by Disney as Sarah Jessica Parker's character in Hocus Pocus. She's actually wearing her costume. So if you just catch it at the right moment and they're like changing her back, and it's like, I recognize that outfit. Hang on. And I just thought, I'm like, did someone replicate it? But no, it's actually the exemplar.
That's amazing.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. But and that's the other thing. So in addition, but in addition to the like locations where like it's these amazing towns that you just like wish you could live in, the outfits, I feel like in all of these projects, they have such iconic costumes. Like,
Mhm.
you know, the Sanderson sisters outfits were so cool. And I don't know why, but I just remember like really liking Marnie's witch outfits and being like, I want one of those. Like, you know, just the little shawl thing that she wears. And
Her like cardigan, I'm gonna call it, is very, it like reminds me of vibe wise Thora Birch's like witch cardigan as well. They're
yeah.
very similar.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's like, you know, I just want to wear these things, you know? Then it makes me think about like, you know, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Like, I just want their outfits, you know?
Yeah.
These are the things that I think about. I want to live in your town and wear your clothes and have magic.
It's funny because I feel the same way about Addams Family, right? Like that one, even though it's mostly within the house, it feels like we're within the town. And because they're such a big family, it feels like a town worth of people. And like people come in and out, and, you know, in both Addams Family and Addams Family Values, you get to meet all the other people, but and also the costumes. Like I feel like Addams Family franchise, I guess just the two. Just the two. I'm not including any of the others. Just
Please,
the two.
especially not the third one. Let's not even go there. As much as I love Tim Curry, God, that was her.
If it's not Angelica Houston, it's not Addams
The
Family.
house in that is, yeah. At least the house, it feels like it's like another member of the family. It's its own character. It's as gothic and decrepit as they are, but it also has this kind of majestic quality to it. Whereas, like, you look at it and you're like, wow, this is a rundown house, and yet it has this kind of charm to it, which I think is reflected by the people who live there, because as weird as they may seem, they're actually really nice. And I love them like everybody else. I think that's one of the things I love the most about watching these films, especially Addams Family Values, when you see them around all the rich society people and they're all just nasty and everything, and then you come across the Addams clan and they're all welcoming and inclusive, and they just like, yeah, everything's great, and they don't see people as bad. I mean, they love evil. Like when the mom says, I could eat you alive, she's like, oh no, Margaret, too young. Like, it's just like they don't see that as a bad thing, but at the same time they just kind of have a different outlook on evil. So if they don't really see people being cruel, it's like, you know, these people are trying to rip you off and they're like, really? Oh, I didn't notice that. And it's like they don't even really care because they're not, you know, into the trivial stuff. They're kind of like beyond that, and so they can just have fun with their lives. And that's also why I watch Addams Family and Addams Family Values every October, and I was very happy that they were films 1 and 2 this year. I'm like, yes, I'm starting with something great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's interesting what you mentioned about how, you know, these are very, I mean, they're kooky and they're a little bit different, and yet they are probably like the most accepting family. And it's like, oh, is that supposed to be scary and out there that these people actually like are not mean and like actually accept people for who they are, and like, you know, even though they live a little bit differently.
Yeah, there's definitely like a pretty clear metaphor of like they're a little bit strange and they do things differently, but they're nice. Like it's not subtle. I really like the idea that, you know, recently I feel like in the past few years people have started to realize that Gomez and Morticia's relationship is one of the like healthiest, most loving and supportive relationships ever portrayed.
Yeah, I saw someone the other year. I posted about it, and so they posted about it, and they said, I don't understand why people say that their like relationship goals are the most toxic relationship. I'm like, said by the person who thought Joker and Harley Quinn were relationship goals. Come on now. Like, that's toxic. I'm like, Gomez and Morticia, they're madly in love with each other. They have a kink. Okay, so they have a fetish. that's fine. Couples are allowed to have that. But the fact is, they know what each other like, they know each other's limits, and they just embrace them. And they're just all about making each other feel loved and adored and just basically worshiping each other. But it's genuine. And then they love their family, and they're actually, you know, despite giving like axes at the dinner table and stuff, they're good parents. So I don't understand how people cannot see them as a good relationship, because being in tune with your partner's needs, loving your partner, and being caring and compassionate and looking after them, you know, because there are, in at least both cases, in both films, Gomez either in one case has a bit of a mental breakdown or the other is sick, and Morticia's right there at his side, like doing everything she can to help him get better. Like, I'm like, yeah, they are an amazing couple. Like, I want my Gomez. Where's my Gomez?
Yeah, it's I'm very concerned about your friend, whoever said that, like, you should really have a chat with them, because Harley Quinn and Joker are in a abusive relationship, if you were unaware.
Yes, yes. I tried to say that, and they're just like, but they're an iconic couple. I'm like,
Well,
for all the wrong reasons.
so are
not
the Adams. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Oh my goodness. But yeah, that's what I had seen recently online was, you know, Morticia and Gomez have like the most like loving like goals relationship, but they're supposed to be portrayed as like this, you know, kind of creepy family that like, you know, would maybe be considered like a horror type of story, you know, like a Halloween story, but yet they have like this. So it's saying that like that's the opposite of what, you know, relationships are like in the real world. You know, they actually have a loving relationship, and other people, you know, regular people don't. But yeah,
Sad state of affairs.
It's funny because I recently rewatched Casper for the first time in, I would say, 10 years. And I forgot what a great movie Casper is. And I feel like it really, maybe it's because of the houses. I feel like Casper and Addams Family are in the same universe because they have fancy houses that are falling apart.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I think a great house is like key for any type of, you know, horror, Halloween type of story.
Yeah.
But then also they both have, correct me if I'm wrong, Christina Ricci.
Yes, they both have Christina Ricci.
And so we got a comment here that I just want to bring up. Can be House of Brilliance of Wednesday. Christina Ricci is casted perfectly. And that just makes me think about how Christina Ricci is basically like the queen of Halloween. I mean, Addams Family, Casper, Beetlejuice, like.
She wasn't in Beetlejuice.
Oh, wait, who was Beetlejuice?
Winona Ryder.
Oh.
But Christina Ricci also did Sleepy Hollow. She did a film called Cursed, where she is turning into a werewolf. So yeah, she's definitely queen of Halloween. Very underrated. I just want to say, because mentioning Wednesday, when I was in the second grade, every year we had to do a school concert, and it's for every single grade. And my grade that year, we were doing a TV show theme medley. And me and a couple others, the TV theme that our group was doing, not our class, just the group within that class, we were doing the Addams Family. And I was cast as Wednesday Addams. And so we had to get me the outfit and everything, and painted my nails, and I had the wig. And then my brother came and he's like, you're missing one thing. And he took my favorite doll, and he took a knife and he chopped her head off. And then he gave it to me. And he's like, and now you're perfect for it. I'm like, you cut the head off my favorite doll. I have never forgiven him. And yes, maybe I did look perfect after that as Wednesday, but that was my favorite doll. Damn it. And he cut off her head.
Oh my goodness.
In my recent rewatch of Casper, speaking of Christina Ricci, I realized why I loved this movie so much as a child is because I had been in love with Christina Ricci for most of my life. And Devon Sawa. So to see them dancing, I was like, wait a second, I'm in love with both of these people. And they're dancing together.
Oh my goodness.
I just realized this year.
Oh man, that is classic. I do feel like Casper is a movie that like a lot of people are like, that scene with the two of them dancing, did something for me, you know?
Yeah.
It's such a touching story, and it's Casper the Friendly Ghost, and I love, and he has such a tragic story. Like I rewatched it 2 years ago, I think now, and I hadn't watched it in so many years, and re-watching it and then fully understanding how Casper died and everything. I'm like, oh my god, this is so freaking sad. Like, I never clicked with this as a child. And I'm like, really? I watched this as a kid? Yikes. But then you just like, he's such a sweet character. And I love that he has his like evil demented uncles, and he just kind of, for being so little, and he even has his own character arc where he's just like, no, I'm standing up to you. And it's like, no, we don't have to scare people. We can just be nice.
Yeah.
You go, Casper.
Did you ever watch the animated series?
I didn't.
Mm-mm.
Oh, it was great.
You like it?
I did. I was a big fan of the animated series for Casper and the animated series for Beetlejuice.
Ooh. Tell us more. Tell us more.
At that time, apparently there were others. My roommate and I made him rewatch Casper with me. And we were talking about the animated series. And apparently in addition to Beetlejuice and Casper, there were other animated series at the same time based off of like kids horror movies or kids spoopy movies, I guess. I just remember loving both of those. I genuinely remember 0 episodes or storylines, but I remember loving them so much. Oh, there was a Ghostbusters one, a mask one. Now I'm remembering what he said. There was a mask and nope, I lost it.
Was that around the time there was like a Jumanji animated series? You think?
Oh, that one was also really good.
Yeah.
Tells you how old I am. I feel like I've just revealed my age.
What did you guys think of Casper Meets Wendy?
I was just thinking about that one. I thought it was cute. I remember liking her little red onesie outfit that she wore, and that was like the first introduction to Hilary Duff, I feel like. I haven't seen it in so long, but I remember enjoying it, and now I want to go back and watch both of those movies.
I think it's such a sweet story, and I think it's really funny that Kathy Moriarty is in both films, but playing completely different characters. Because one, she's like related to the person who owned the house in Casper, and in Casper Meets Wendy, she's one of the witch aunts. So I'm just like, I mean, she's such a great actress, and I love watching her in so many things. I think I love her most in Soap Dish, but with this, she's just kind of meant to play a witch. It just suits her so well. That deep, gravelly voice. I'm like, yeah, she could cackle. Yeah, she got it. But yeah, little. All these little Disney type films, they all have, as fun as they are, they all have really good like morals and stories to learn from them. I feel like even the ones that aren't set on Halloween but you can still watch on Halloween, like Don't Look Under the Bed, that's a great story, and it's kind of like this really nice tale about embracing being a child, and you don't have to grow up so soon. Like, enjoy time while you have it. I know some people like, that was the scariest film I ever saw. I'm like, well, if you're someone who's afraid to look under the bed, yeah, that'd do it for you. I mean, it's an interesting take on the boogeyman. I actually think that's really good. And I would put that on my, although it doesn't take place on Halloween, that's one for my Halloween watch list. If people like, what's a family-friendly film you can watch? Don't Look Under the Bed is a good choice too.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking about watching that one recently. There's just so many movies. I'm like, how many more days in October? Maybe I'll extend my October viewing till like December 1st. And
I support that.
This is why I said Halloween is a lifestyle, not a season. So you can do it all year round.
Yeah, were you going to say something about, was it Casper?
I just had a story, a plot line complaint, but that's all. We can move on.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
The woman in Casper who inherits the house, it's a family member's house. Casper was a family member who lived there. Who I want to understand this relation to the woman. I want to understand how she's related to Casper. Also, who in their right mind named their children Fatso, Stinky, and Stretch? Like, I just want to understand what this family is, because she is like your average person, well, your average greedy woman. And so Casper is an old relative of hers. Does she not know the story of this relative who died and her relative who went crazy and was an inventor? And like, I don't understand.
I would theorize that it's like a great uncle or something. Like, since child, I would theorize like probably the house went to like a brother, and then it's like that side of the family, because I think it was like was it meant to be like her uncle or brother who died?
Her father.
It's like one of them. So it's obviously, I don't think she's that interested in family history. She's just in for the money. But I also think, since they kind of obviously think that's so stinky and all that, I think they made up those names themselves, because oftentimes they say that ghosts don't really have a memory of themselves being human. Right. So maybe they don't remember what their human names were. So that's just the names they came up with.
Fine. I'll accept it. Fine.
Going back a little bit to when we mentioned Beetlejuice, I feel like that's a good example of one that, like, you know, is such a cult classic, and then it, like, I feel like it's gotten like even more new life with like the musical, and like it's a trend on TikTok. I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if we weren't, you know, at home, I could see that being like a really big costume this year, just because I feel like there's this whole like musical TikTok world where like Beetlejuice is really popular. So yeah, I feel like that one's like kind of got new life brought back into it.
I mean, I've seen Beetlejuice costumes and Lydia costumes at cons around the world in the past few years that I've been going, regardless of like the musical. I think that movie just never goes away.
I also think that if you're ever trying to do a costume on a budget, Beetlejuice is the way to go. It's really not hard to come up with either a Lydia costume or a Beetlejuice costume. It's like, have something black, cool, paint some white stripes on it. Got something white, paint some black stripes on it, all good to go. It's so much fun. Michael Keaton, oh my god, he's so great as Beetlejuice. It's a fun story, and it's amazing that even though characters die and they're ghosts, and my god, their caseworker has her throat slit and smoke's coming out of it, and we're watching, it's like, oh look, there's a joke about suicide, like all these things, and yet it doesn't feel creepy or disturbing. It feels like, I mean, yeah, I remember watching this as a kid and I never thought there was anything wrong with it. I didn't even catch most of those references until I'm older and I can actually absorb them. But I know there are probably there would be a lot of people saying, no, that's inappropriate for children. Like, you know what? Most of these films, children aren't going to get those things. They're really not paying attention to that stuff. So just let them have fun. I mean, every child should be able to watch people suddenly singing the Banana Boat song. Jesus.
Too funny. And going off of that idea of, you know, the fact that, I mean, Beetlejuice in general will continue to live on, but it's also gotten some new life. I feel like there's some other projects from our childhoods that like they've remade, like Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps for like new audiences. Have you guys checked out like these newer remakes of like classic projects, and like what do you think of it?
I generally don't care for remakes or reboots. I skip them. I will say this. I know that the new Addams Family animated film that came out, and a lot of us were horrified of that artwork. And as I was watching Addams Family again this year, did a little research, and apparently the artwork that they chose and the crazy shaped heads was what the original Addams Family looked like. So I learned a little about myself and my mistakes. I'm not afraid to admit that I messed up, but I wasn't about to watch a remake, right? Like, again, like I said, if it's not Angelica Houston, I'm not watching it. And so I haven't seen any of these, and I think I just really don't understand why we need to, if something is good, why are we redoing it? Like, you know what I mean? Let's come up with new, good, creative ideas. If something was bad and we want to remake it, I get that. I get wanting to do over. But like, Are You Afraid of the Dark was a quality Canadian series.
Yes.
Yeah, that was, these were the shows that, well, not Goosebumps. Goosebumps was on right after school. So that was like me running home from school to jump on the bed and watch Goosebumps, and I loved it. Like the moment that intro started, I'm like, good times are coming. And Are You Afraid of the Dark? Are You Afraid of the Dark was actually always on after midnight, which is weird because it's still like a kid's show. So why was it on after midnight? I'm like, that's cool. I'm okay with this. I'm watching it after midnight. And I loved these shows. And it's, I mean, I can jokingly say, oh, you're ruining my childhood. You can't ruin my childhood, ruined my childhood. So that's fine. But it's, I hate remakes, reboots, because the number one reason for doing them is money, and two, there's really no reason for it. If it already exists, why do something that already exists? Why not do something new? I mean, with horror and friendly horror or family horror, whatever you want to call it, and Halloween, there are just so many stories that can still be told. So why not just create a new show and new characters and new concepts instead of just going, hi, we have no imagination whatsoever, so we're just going to do something that already exists. I don't think that it's also fair to the people who originally created these things. You're just taking something that they did, and most of the time the people who originally made them don't have the legal property to their own creation, so they're not included in whether they want their stuff redone. They don't get a say in it. Like they did The Lion King, and the original creators of The Lion King didn't get a say because they don't own it, and they were all pissed and they hated the remake, and they're just like, why did you do this? Same with Aladdin and so many movies where people like, I put my blood, sweat, and tears into creating this story, all these stories and this concept, and you're just taking my hard work and slapping your name on it. And I always call it accepted plagiarism, because that's for me what it is, because you're just taking somebody else's work, putting your name on it, and maybe like, you know, changing a few things here and there. But it's like, well, we can see the eraser lines. We know it wasn't originally you. And that kind of bugs me.
I would have been okay with if Are You Afraid of the Dark was a continuation.
Yeah.
For example, if we then saw the Midnight Society reconvene and met their kids, and their kids were like, we're going to do this. And then that's how the show continued and began and like gave us, you know, we never meet their lives. So like if we expanded it beyond the anthology so that we understand who they are, I would have been cool with that. You know what I mean? Like that feels like more of the same, but it wasn't. They just were like, new group, here you go, new show.
And they're in the story. Like it's not like they're telling a story. So it was very different. But I guess my thought is for a lot of these projects, like, I mean, I guess Goosebumps was a bit different because it was like they made a movie and like, you know, I think the first movie was pretty good. The second movie was kind of like, all right, well, we didn't really need that one. But
the Jack Black movies you're referring to?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like the first one was cute.
No, I'm judging you. Go on.
The second one was, but I think the other thing is the problem with projects like that is that like, you know, like a Goosebumps, there are millions of books. So you're not just telling one of the stories from the books. You have to combine all these characters and tell a new story. And then I feel like it kind of is like not as exciting. But I think with all the ones that you guys mentioned, I think those stories make sense where it's like, okay, well, I don't necessarily want to see a remake of, you know, these projects. But then I think where I feel a little bit differently, I guess, is maybe with a lot of these superhero projects. And I think that's because those stories in general have, like, even in the comic books, have always been told multiple times by multiple people in multiple ways. Like, there's so many different stories that I think that there is a way to, like, introduce Batman for like, when was the original Batman TV show, like the 60s? I feel like that necessarily doesn't align with what people would all want to see today. That's still like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that still love it, but I think like to be able to have like these different versions of these superheroes as we kind of grow and change as a society is like fun to see. But I think that's like a bit different than like, if we're going to remake, I don't know, Clueless. Like, I feel like that's not one that I would want to see remade. Maybe doing it in a different way, like making a musical or, something like that. But like, I don't need to see a remake of that. I feel like it's not going to be the same. That was like a time capsule of a specific time. Whereas like with the superhero projects, like there's been so many stories already. What's the difference if you're continuing to tell a bunch of different stories, but like on screen and giving people like their own Batman or their own Superman or their own Spider-Man kind of thing?
Sure. But I think that, to your point, right? Like the Spider-Man, for example, we've had 2 already do the exact same origin story.
Yeah.
And then we got a new one who was like, we're skipping that because it. And we got a different story. And I think that that's the way to do it. I feel like, there are a lot of new movies, especially like this year on Netflix. There are a bunch of new movies we were talking about earlier. The Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting. Like that is a new and original based off a book series story. And there are so many more stories we could tell. So like, remaking Hocus Pocus feels unnecessary. Remaking Casper feels unnecessary. We have that story. Give me a new ghost. Give me new witches. You know what I mean? Salem, Massachusetts loves to be part of Halloween. They do take it very seriously. You can give them a new mythology and they'd be like, yep, that's us. I'm speaking for a city I do not live in.
No, but I think that makes sense. Like, there are so many original stories to be told. And yeah, with Spider-Man and stuff, it's like, I don't think we need to have that many remakes in one, short period of time. If there was like the Tobey Maguire one and then like a newer one now, sure. But to have so many and then they're all telling the same story, and also not just telling the same story, but telling the same story with the same villains over and over and over. It's like there are so many more villains in these worlds. Like tell those stories. But going off of what you were saying about A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting, I feel like this year is the first time that I've been seeing like actual representation in childhood Halloween projects between that and Vampires versus the Bronx. Like when I watched Vampires versus the Bronx, I was like, this is the first time I've ever seen Black and brown kids leading a family-friendly Halloween movie. I've never seen that in my life, which is crazy that like it, in 2020, we're finally seeing that now. And I think that that's so cool. I mean, it's delayed, like we should have been doing this, but like it does make me think and look back and be like, every Halloween movie that we've talked about pretty much besides Don't Look Under the Bed, and Twitches. But like most of these movies all center around, the same types of people, and you never get to see other stories. And, to be able to see like this year, we're finally getting these movies starring different types of people. And the fact that like even going into, I know, Yael, you're not a Christmas fan, but even going into Christmas, the fact that like we're getting Jingle Jangle, which is like an all African-American like Christmas musical spectacular. Like how has that like not existed before? That's so amazing that we're gonna get that, but it's also like let's do more of this, like I want to see more, different people in these stories, because I never really realized that until this year that like, wow, yeah, I really haven't seen anybody, that is not like this, the same type of people in these stories.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, I just thinking about that. I'm going through a catalog of films in my head that, little festive flicks, and they are predominantly featuring white people. The Little Vampire, that's still all white people. My mom's dating a vampire, that's still white people. Like the only films that come to mind that have people of color and that are family friendly for this time of year is Twitches 1 and 2 and The Haunted House. That's it. That's I'm the only two that are popping into my head right now. And I'm just like, yeah, well, most of these are owned by Disney, so I'm not like that surprised. I mean, one of my favorite things used to be as a kid it would be like October 30th and October 31st, where it'd just be like Disney Channel doing non-stop like spookathon. It would just be like everything that's suitable for Halloween, and then it would be like they would give you like every episode of their TV show that was a Halloween episode. I'm like, I don't even watch this show, but I'm watching because it's a Halloween thing. But then I'm like, yeah, it's just like a white show, white movie, white show. I'm like, oh yeah, that's so awkward.
Like,
and as a kid, you kind of just focus more on the Halloween stuff. You're not really even paying attention to anybody. But as a grown-up, you look back on it and you're like, wow, there's a lot of missed opportunities here.
Yeah. Go ahead, Yael.
This year, Freeform's 31 Nights of Halloween expanded their what they're including in Halloween. And so they have, the Ghostbuster movies. They added Scream into there, but they added The Craft, which is not a kid's movie, is rated R, and does have one of the leads is a Black woman. Rachel True is in there. And I know that a lot of times when The Craft is promoted, she is forgotten. They do not remember that they're a coven of four. The whole point of the movie is they need a fourth. And she is always forgotten and left out. But she, is one of our few Black leads in 90s and early 2000s Halloween seasonally correct features.
It's kind of ironic that she gets so, and not in a good way, that she gets so forgotten in promotions or anything, because her, everybody had their own individual storyline in that film of what is the one thing that they want. And for her, it was revenge against the racist bully. Her whole thing was she's battling racism, and like her friends are all white, but it's funny how she's dealing with that, but nobody else seems to care. Like, not even her friends. It's like, oh, you're just dealing with racism. It's okay. It's no big deal. It's like, no, that's kind of a big deal. Like, I remember hearing that. I didn't click until I was older, and I actually caught what word was said. I'm like, oh, okay. You are not you were a bitch before, but now you're even worse.
It's not even subtle racism. It is blatant.
And so I'm just like,
blatant racism.
It's amazing that she's still such a neglected character when, I don't know, maybe it's like they focused so much more on, I guess, what they thought was more relatable. But it's like, relatable to who? Like, racism is a topic that's going to be relatable to a lot of people of color. So why do you only it feels like it only gets like a Cliff Notes, addressed to it. But, rewatching it as an adult, I picked up on it a lot more. And I'm just like, well, you really didn't do enough with that. But I love that the bully learned her lesson in the end. So that was good.
Yeah, it's like sad to see that, because I know I've seen that actress posting about how like they always forget about her, and it's like, what the heck? And I just think that shows, in addition to the fact that we never really see many people of color in these stories, it just kind of makes you feel like, I don't know, like maybe I can't have that fun magical moment, like I talked to, in one of my Hispanic Heritage Month interviews, I was talking to Janine Mason, who's in Roswell, New Mexico, and she was saying how when she was young, her family watched Gossip Girl, and they loved that show so much, and she never thought that she could be the Serena or the Blair. She was like, well, there's this one, sort of, racially ambiguous character, like maybe I could be that side person, like maybe that would be a spot for me. And like while she saw like that representation in a way there, she still never felt like I could be the lead. And then now to see that she like leads her own CW show is like pretty like full circle, like, no girl, you can do it. Like, and and so like I hope that we get to see more of these stories where like, people of color get to lead these films, and it's like, see girl, like you could do it, like to see Tamara Smart lead the Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting. Like, how cool is it to see a young Black girl be fighting monsters and like all this stuff? Like, that's so cool. And it only took till 2020 to see that.
Yeah, and she was great. She was like fantastic in that movie, which I don't like kids. She was great.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that whole cast was actually very diverse. So, I mean, I love seeing it because like our society is diverse. So like we should be able to see that on screen as well. So yeah, I'm excited. Like these movies of this year with that one and the Vampires versus the Bronx just gives me hope, you know. Like maybe I'll get a Latino Christmas movie soon.
There should be like the only Christmas family movie that I can, again off the top of my head, that I can think of that was centered around an African American family was a film. I can't remember it because I only saw it once, but it had Chris Brown in it, and it was still just I liked that it was just like any other Christmas movie. The only difference was the family was all Black. And so they had a lot of things that I know some people watching, they're like, yep, this reminds me of Christmas at my family's house. And I'm just like, well, I love that you have that. And I love that me watching it, I'm just like, yeah, this still feels like a Christmas movie. Like, why was this so hard to do? It's really not that different to anything. And it's just important to have. Like, I was so disappointed that I forgot to mention a show in the last episode of your show that I was on, because it was on Netflix. And I wish I could remember what it was called. It started with a P. It was one word, but it was an and it was all magic based, and there was kind of like a King Solomon vibe, I think, to something, but there was like, and someone was kind of almost like Isis in a way, and I wish I could remember what it was called, but it only had one season, then it got canceled, and I was like, no, this show was so good. And the thing it was like, if a white person showed up, it was rare. Like, there was hardly any white people who showed up in this thing. And I was like, as a white person watching it, I'm like, I'm okay with this. I don't care. Because I love seeing this whole other story with people who are actually getting their chance to shine. And God damn it, what is the name of that show?
Well, if you think of it, let us know.
I've been trying to think of it for like a week.
If you like Google things, nothing comes up.
No, because every time I try to type in supernatural show, all it gives me is supernatural.
Yeah, like, they really smart screwing us all over with that name.
Yeah. Oh man. I was gonna say. Oh, but you know what? I feel like that. I love that idea though of like, you don't need to be in a specific culture or a specific background to like relate to a story. Like for Over the Moon, which is coming out later this month, they're following the Mid-Autumn Festival in China, and I thought that was so cool watching it. I've never been to China. I don't have that experience of like celebrating that festival, but after watching that movie, I like bought mooncakes and like made crabs and like celebrated it myself. Like I feel like when you learn about these things, they just inspire you to like want to learn more, or maybe even want to like participate and like just like learn about another culture and accept it, and not be like, oh, this is like not something I relate to because it's not my culture. It's like, no, like maybe I want to go there one day and like experience it for real. I think it's like a learning opportunity. So yeah. I think that we can all like learn so much from just like experiencing other, cultures and backgrounds and seeing them on screen if you can't necessarily like get a chance to really go there in real life. This is like our way to travel through different places.
I've never understood why films and television don't want to embrace other cultures or ethnicities, because being a white Australian, there's like no culture in that. It's really boring. It's like, oh, you're from Australia. I'm like, that's the end of that. There's nothing else to really go on, except that I have to argue with people on the fact that there is an L in the word Australia, and all Australians don't seem to want to pronounce it. Australia. God, bugger off. But so I crave that culture that's like I was like trying to go through my family tree. I'm like, tell me there's something somewhere there where I can like embrace it and it's not me stealing because it's actually in my heritage. I'm like, bloody hell, we've got British, I've got French. I'm like, there's still all white people. I'm like, you're all boring. I mean, there's kind of some European in there somewhere, and I'm like, yeah, but not really the interesting European. Although I did go and tell my friend, I'm like, hey, guess what? Some of my relatives are from the Netherlands. Interesting. But so I've always craved learning about other cultures because it's something I don't get to experience, and those traditions that come with culture, which I think is so beautiful and that can be passed on to generations. And I think that's why I crave things like Halloween and Christmas, because they're things that you can celebrate as a family and you can create your own little traditions that you can pass on year by year and generation to generation. And I crave those things because I can't get it anywhere else. So I love watching films where I get to see what culture and tradition is like for other people who grow up with it. And so I don't understand when I have to listen to people like, we don't want to hear that because, you know, white people are great. And I'm like, no, we're freaking boring as hell.
I love what you said though about the tradition. I feel like that is really what, you know, makes these things so fun, is that tradition of, you know, going to get pumpkins, going to watch these movies, you know, doing something with your family, you know, putting up a tree or lighting candles, or, you know, just things that you know, can just like do together. And I don't know, I'm really, as I feel like as I get older, I'm like more and more drawn to like traditions, and, you know, even if they're goofy ones, like, I don't know, things that, you know, just things that we decide to do on our own, you know, it's just fun.
I started a new tradition a couple of years ago where on Christmas I watched the David S. Pumpkins Halloween special. Honestly, it's perfect. It makes me so happy.
That's great. That is great. Yeah, I'm gonna write that one down for the future.
Yeah. I have a Vimeo link. Somebody uploaded it onto the internet, and so that's where I watch it.
Very nice.
Yeah, I wish that Halloween was more of a thing here. If it was, I'd do what I do for Christmas, which I would be to like decorate the house and decorate the front yard. Because my house used to be known as for its lights. Like, I was the most lit up house in my neighborhood. I mean, there was a house on a side street, but side streets don't count. So I'm on the main road, so therefore main road counts. But if you count side streets, they had me beat. But I loved doing that, and I would go outside and I would hand out candy canes to the kids when the parents would bring their kids to see the lights. And I love that, and I love seeing people smile in that. So I wish Halloween was more of a thing here so that I could have an excuse to decorate my house, because I used to do it when I used to have a social life, which I don't anymore, and that's not because of COVID. And I used to have, you know, little Halloween parties, and I'd just be like, yeah, you have to wear a costume. They're like, what? We have to dress up? I'm like, yes, you do. Mm-hmm. And I would go to the store and I would get everything, and I would make things, and I would hang up things, and I was just like, I love this. And then it's like, crap, now I got to take it all down. But I mean, I love that, and I don't get to do that, because if I did put up Halloween decorations outside my house, I'm pretty sure people would think I'm insane, which I am, but that's neither here nor there.
It's like, they don't need to know. It's my business. To start wrapping things up a little bit, I have two questions for you guys. One, what is a project that you think could maybe become a classic in the future? And two, what is like a spooky film or TV show or, you know, anything that you either recommend or that you're excited for that's coming up this month?
Oh my God.
Those are hard. I don't think there have been any new projects that I would consider like, this is going to be a cult. Everyone's going to watch this every year. Mm-hmm. I feel like there may have been one where I actually said, oh, this is going to be one we watch every year. Now I can't remember what it was. So I'm going with, I don't think there is one.
Okay.
What was the
second question? Yeah, I agree
question?
With that.
Okay. And the second one is like either something that's coming up soon or just something that you recommend spooky wise to watch.
I recommend the Netflix Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting. I also recommend Lock and Key on Netflix.
Ooh, nice.
That's a series. The first season is up. They're working on the second season. That one I feel like is really good for Halloween.
Yeah, I agree. That's like a fun one. You have like all the elements of like mystery and ghosts and keys and, you know, all this wild stuff.
And magic and
Still haven't gotten past the first episode.
Of Lock and Key?
Yeah, I watched the first one. I was struggling to get into it, and then I'm just, I planned to watch the whole thing. I planned to watch the whole thing, but then I was just like, I'll get to it at some point. But yeah, I don't feel like we've had anything in recent years that has the quality that's going to give it nostalgia in the future. I don't think that we've had that. I think it's partially because people are so concerned with making remakes and reboots that they're really just not excuse me, focused on creating anything that's new and that can have that kind of magic. I think we definitely have with Christmas films. I mean, the Christmas Chronicles, for me, I watched that and then it's like, yeah, there's a sequel, and I'm like, yes, I'm going to watch this every year now. But I don't have anything like that for Halloween. Everything that I go back to is like all from the 90s. And I'm just like, damn, those 90s people knew how to do their Halloween movies and TV shows. And I just don't get that anymore. There's kind of like, it almost feels like the magic has kind of gone away. And I'm just waiting for like the chosen one to return and restore magic to the world or something like that. And I'm waiting. Yeah. Someone just give me a fun story. Don't give me something that's been done before. I want something new, and something that's really fun. It's not preaching anything, but maybe consider not casting as many white people in whatever this project is. That's a thought. I just think that there's so many things that can still be done, and the fact that they're kind of just like, it's like there's a cabinet of ideas and just it's collecting dust. Nobody's going near it. I just like, somebody open the cabinet.
I wonder if it's because, like, I don't know, I feel like around Halloween, we get a lot of new movies, but I think we also get like kind of horror movies in general throughout the year. But then for Christmas, I feel like everyone's just like coming out with like a million movies. Like Hallmark and Lifetime each do like 40 movies of every single kind, of every, like they're just throwing things at the wall. Things have been done before, things that haven't been done before. Maybe it's just like, if Halloween was a time where it was just like everybody just make a million movies, then maybe we'd get some more of these classics, because it's like there'd be so many more options like we do get around Christmas. But
I feel like the only people who do that are like indie films. Like definitely around October, there are just so many indie films you can watch, but they're all kind of still a lot of the same thing. Like I can't tell you how many indie films I end up watching around this time of the year. I'd probably say the majority of what I watch are indie horror films, and they're either one of two things. They're either, oh look, it's a haunted house, or oh look, it's about teenagers going to a haunted house attraction that is full of psychos. It's like usually one of the two, and I'm like, great, it's all the same crap. Like sometimes they're okay, but mostly they're just crap, and that has nothing to do with them being indie. It's just to do with you're doing the same stuff over and over and over again and somehow expecting it to be good. That's kind of the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something different to happen.
Maybe the other thing is also we have a little bit more higher standards for Halloween movies than Christmas movies. Like there's a lot of crappy Christmas movies, but they just keep coming out, and I think it's just people love the, like, the joy of Christmas time, that sometimes it doesn't even matter what the movie is, whereas I think maybe with Halloween we have a little bit higher standards maybe than
I think would agree. I think with the Christmas movies, specifically with the like Hallmark ones, the Lifetime ones, all of those, they have a formula, and they just plug in a different blonde white woman and they do their formula.
True.
Am I wrong? That's what they do.
No, you're right.
And now they go, oh, okay, we'll replace the blonde white woman and the brunette man, sometimes a blonde man, with two black people, because in Hallmark and Lifetime, you cannot have interracial relationships. So they'll replace them with two black people.
Can't have gay relationships either.
Also true. And they will give them the same formula. I think that if they wanted to, they could make a formula for Halloween, and sadly, they would give us a different blonde woman and a different brunette man, and we'd get to see a billion of the same. And some of them would stick out and be great, and some of them would be less great.
I very much agree with that. I'm thinking about what was it? Christmas calendar or calendar holiday with Kat Graham, and yeah, it was the traditional Christmas kind of story. Like that could have been played by any actress. You could have put any white person in that role, would have been the same thing. That it was just like, yep, cool. Like I don't know, there was just nothing new about it. It was any Christmas story, and I liked it. It was a fun thing, and you're right, we're not as harsh with our Christmas movies, because I don't know, Christmas is like that time of the year where instead of like wanting spooky, we just want uplifting, happy, everybody gets a happy ending, la 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 la, and it's
Disagree.
like
everyone's Santa.
Not what we want, but okay.
You remind me of when we went looking at Christmas lights, and there was this whole block that had Christmas lights, except this one person who just had a giant light up Scrooge sign on their house. That would be you. And you know what? My mom and I agreed that was the best house on the block. So.
I just think that if they wanted to make a formula to make Halloween movies, they could. And in part of their, Freeform's 31 nights of Halloween, they could do Hocus Pocus and Addams Family and Casper and do the classics, and then, release a formulaic Halloween movie. I would love it, especially if it's like Freeform, for example. They would be more likely to give us some sort of diversity in the cast, because they do like to do that. I also know that, last year Hallmark had 2 Hanukkah movies.
Oh.
And they were both about Christmas. It was very frustrating.
Wait, what?
They had 2 movies that included Hanukkah that had a Jewish character celebrating Christmas.
I feel like Hanukkah is such a well celebrated holiday as well. Like I'm surprised more people don't tap into that.
Because it's not an important holiday.
I mean, I like Hanukkah.
No, but it's not in the scheme of holidays. It's not an important one.
You get presents for multiple days. It's an awesome holiday. Well, no. I know some people who do. Well, I think that's more their personal choice. But I mean, if you want to create your own traditions,
it is not a gift-giving holiday. It is also not an important holiday.
Yeah, we just kind of all want to do the typical white Christmas thing, which is why I like Christmas horror movies, because they do not do that crap. They will tell you like the original Christmas story, and they will tell you, the real Christmas origins that are the pagan origins. It's like, well, here's where Christmas really comes from, and I'm like, good old horror, telling it like it is.
Yeah, Krampus, big fan.
All right, so let us wrap things up. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. This has been such a lovely conversation. You can find more information and links to Pop Culture Planet and our guests below. But if you want to follow Yael and Ashleigh, do you guys want to share where they can find you, Yael?
Oh, everywhere at Yael Tygiel. That's YAELTYGIEL. On Saturdays on Streaming Wars on the Hashtag Show, on Sundays on Super Lady Hero Hour on Fanversation. And if you're interested, I just did an interview for Fanversation with Tamsin McDonough from A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting. And you can check that out. Also on Twitch, Mondays and Wednesdays, failing miserably. Come watch.
Awesome. What about you, Ashleigh?
That would be the Movie Oracle across Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and especially on YouTube, where right now I'm focused on all my wonderful spooky content and recapping my many movies that I am watching this month and slowly going insane from it. Yahoo!
Oh man, yeah, you got a lot of movies to get through. So I mean, what I'm working on right now, I have too many videos that I'm editing right now, which is
sounds like you.
It's too much. But I also have an interview going up tomorrow with Tamara Smart and Una Lawrence from A Babysitter's Guide to Monster Hunting, and then some more spooky Halloween reviews, including Love and Monsters. I don't know if you guys have heard about that one with Dylan O'Brien, but it was actually really cute. It was kind of like like Zombie-landish, but like, you know, more monsters instead of zombies. So I have that coming up, and just a ton more videos. So be on the lookout for that. And if you're interested in following the podcast, you can follow me pretty much everywhere at Kmaldo, or the show on Pop Culture Planet Podcast on Instagram. You can catch new episodes of the show every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. EST. And if you watch the live video version of the Pop Culture Planet podcast on my channel, youtube.com/Kmaldo, you'll be able to join in on the conversation in real time and stick around at the end for a Q&A that is not in the audio podcast. Episodes are available on all of your favorite podcast listening platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And if you enjoy the episodes, consider subscribing so you know when a new one's posted. Rate and review this podcast and share it with your fellow pop culture lovers. Thanks for listening. It's been a blast, and I'll talk to you next week. And now we will quickly, go through some of the comments that we haven't gotten to yet. But we're going to keep it quick because we've already been talking for quite a bit, I feel. I see
there's questions about Hellstrom.
Yes, we will get to them. So first we got a comment from Zach saying, I believe Halloween is a lifestyle choice. Preach, Ashleigh. You agree? Adam Daly.
We're all believers here.
Yeah, right. Yes, it is a lifestyle. It is it's in your heart, year round.
I almost years ago was going to change my entire apartment to be a dungeon. And I went to the Halloween store on November 1st, the best day to go. And I bought, they have wallpaper that's brick, gray brick wallpaper, or not wallpaper. I think you're supposed to hang it up for photos, but I was going to wallpaper my room. And I bought Halloween decorations to make my apartment a dungeon because that's how much I believed Halloween was a lifestyle. So I'm with you. It is not seasonal. It is year round.
Yeah, go big or go home.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Adam says that he worked retail, and once the clock strikes midnight, November 1st, Christmas music starts to play, and that always sucked.
I know. I used to have a rule with a friend of mine who loved Christmas music that she could not start singing it until after Thanksgiving, which is the last weekend of November. And she and I agreed to this rule. The rest of the world did not, and it's very upsetting.
Yeah, I feel like some people do the rule where it's once Santa passes through in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, then you're allowed to start celebrating Christmas.
Thanksgiving, fine. Yeah. Not October.
Yeah, oh man. I feel we already are. I feel like now we're already starting to hear about all the Christmas movies that are coming up. I'm but we haven't even gotten to Halloween yet.
I know.
What do you mean? Let's see.
Christmas.
We get a comment from Madness Arcade that says Hellstrom comes out tomorrow. It looks awesome. I can't wait. Are you guys gonna check that one out?
I've never even heard of it.
It's like a new Marvel Hulu project.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's I think it's the children of a powerful serial killer, and then they hunt other bad people, but they're Marvel heroes. I don't know.
Why does this sometimes remind me of Hansel and Gretel, witch hunters?
Yeah, maybe.
I watched. I forgot that it isn't out yet. I watched the first episode because I get screeners.
Oh yeah.
I chose not to continue watching. It's not for me.
Ooh, okay.
I'm not a big horror scary fan, and it felt very much like it was going in the horror scary vein, and that's just not for me. So I think it feels like a show. This is going to sound weird. It feels like a show that I could imagine airing on Fox after Lucifer, when Lucifer aired on Fox.
Okay. I would make it like that then.
But for me, it was too horror style.
I feel like I'm surprised that like I'm not hearing like as much about it as I thought I would, especially because it's like a Marvel project technically. So I don't know, but I'm curious. I'll probably check out the first episode, see what I think, and then decide from there if I have enough time to do another video.
Doesn't sound like you do.
I don't know. I don't think so. I have right now, this is like too much, but there's 31 days in in October, and I have 28 videos so far for this month. And I don't like that because it's too much editing.
That's why I did most of mine in September, so that I can just upload them. And actually, they're all uploaded. It's just like now it's like publish. Done, done.
Mine
except for my recaps. Oh, God.
Slowly been just like, each week I feel like I add more things that are like new coming out, and I'm like, oh no, I'm stressed. Too many things added.
That's why I prefer to do everything live. It's live, no editing.
That's true. And we got a comment from Adam saying that he loves Hocus Pocus, and he and his wife are going to do a podcast episode about the film because they love it. Nice. Very cool. Did anyone
I'm still trying to find the name of this damn TV show that I can't remember the name of.
Keep thinking. We got another comment. Sleepy Hollow is a good show to binge on Halloween. I wish Katrina had a better ending, though. Did you guys watch Sleepy Hollow? Wait, is this the movie or the TV show?
I think the TV show. It's a binge.
I never watched it. I've only watched
it
the Tim Burton movie.
Mm-hmm.
Could have sworn I bookmarked it.
I feel like if you're gonna watch Sleepy Hollow during Halloween, then you'd probably also watch like Grimm and Lucifer. Those feel Halloween-ish, like Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love just the shows in general that just like air that you're like, this would be good for Halloween, but also I just love a supernatural show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the same way, which is why I'm always like kind of bummed when I'm watching a supernatural show and then they don't do a Halloween special. I'm like, really? You of all people.
For you. They handed it to you.
They let me down.
Let's see. Another comment from Adam. I think this was in reference to Ghostbusters and Casper.
Yes.
That the Ghostbusters are in the Casper universe?
Yeah, so at the beginning of Casper, there's a few cameos and references that I think no children understood. When Kerrigan, I think is her name, comes to see the house and meets Casper and it's haunted, different people stop by. And so Dan Aykroyd stops by in his Ghostbuster outfit. And then another guy who's a character from something in like the 70s, I want to say, stops by.
That was real specific. Thanks.
Sorry. So sorry. You like watch it as an adult and go, this is clearly a reference to something and I don't know what it is.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. That's cool. Wow. Yeah. I need to rewatch because I didn't catch any of that.
No, I genuinely only know because I watched it last week.
A couple of other comments that we will address quickly. Madness Arcade talks a little bit more about Hellstrom. Says they are the children of Satan. It's like a hybrid of Supernatural and Lucifer. The showrunner said Hellstrom is about as scary as Daredevil is, and it reinvents the horror exorcism genre. So, I mean, that sounds pretty interesting, actually. But again, I feel like I haven't been seeing, like, promo about it, really. And then one last comment. Going back to the Christmas idea, I think the Hallmark formula is wholesome. And they don't care if it's new or old, as long as they're nice, wholesome Christmas movies.
That's exactly the point of them.
Yeah, they gotcha. That's exactly what they're trying to do.
Well, that's funny. We kind of want the same with Halloween. We want spooky, creepy, wholesome Halloween movies.
Right.
Yes. Too funny.
You know.
Well, that is all for tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you to everyone who commented, and we will see you next week. Bye.